Ryan, when you have a guy like Max Clare come in was as productive of a receiver as he was at Purdue, how exciting is that for possibilities, what you can do with him as a tight end?
Yeah, I think the tight end position's a great opportunity to create mismatches, whether it be in the run game or the pass game. Guys that are able to do both at a really high level can cause issues, I think, from the defensive perspective. So to have someone that dynamic is definitely should ideally be a bonus. But right now, we're not really over focused on schematics per se, how everyone fits. We're really trying to focus on you know identifying what these guys maybe lack and improving those areas, and then everything they do well, we're trying to enhance. So it's really a hard focus on self development. And I know he has a good feel for what he's good at, and I think that he's really focused on the things he can improve upon. But having guys that can do multiple job descriptions can cause issues for defenses. Yeah.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, when we talked to you out there, you said being an offensive coordinator won't take away from what you're doing with the receivers. How are you finding balancing that time with the offense as a whole, having a headset on, talking to quarterbacks, but still getting what you need out of that receiver?
Yeah, I think from a receiver stance, that room, I think that has some good veteran leadership. So the top of the room is well secured, and those guys are doing a really good job, and they're really deep. So did a good job getting a jump on the guys that just got here, some freshmen, and I think the combination of getting things going in January and kind of setting the parameters of how we operate and the expectations a little bit on again focusing on yourself and your self improvement really allows those first couple groups to kind of do their thing at practice. So Coach Jordan's doing a great job helping me in that room, keeping it organized. But with all that being said, I think being organized outside of receiver meeting times and all those other times where you're the position coach, if you will, if you can stay well organized, it doesn't detract from where you're trying to be when you're supposed to be there, if that makes sense. So on the field, I'm trying to watch a lot of things. I think that based on previous opportunities, maybe I'm focused in on one guy because he made that mistake on that play last week, so I'm kind of locked in there. But it's definitely a balancing act. I'm not saying I'm a pro at it yet, but I can feel myself when I'm getting pulled one way or the other, and as long as I can keep self-assessing myself, I think our goals and what my goals are can be accomplished.
Noah Weisskopf, The Lantern.
How and where have you seen Jeremiah grow the most as a leader?
Well, I would say he, originally a leader. He's a by example type of young man. He's not going to say a whole lot, at least in years past. I would say growing would be that way. He's being a little more outspoken. I think he's speaking more in the room, in the receiver room. And, I would say just even conversations that we have definitely just feel, more and more intellect and football IQ and all that's just growing. He's just another year older and another year of improvement. So he's growing that way, but I would say probably a little more outspoken than he was when he first walked in, since when he walked in it was 0. So it's definitely a little more than that. He's doing a good job of always leading by example, but we're all trying to just get him out of his comfort zone and see if he can make an impact on some of his peers from a communication standpoint.
Stefan Kreisnick, Cleveland.com.
We saw the success you guys had last season with the running backs being able to kind of divide the workload and keep them relatively fresh going into the playoff. Just how important do you think that is to this roster? Does it have to be 2 guys? Can there be a third guy that maybe has more reps than we saw from a third guy last year?
Yeah, I don't know how it'll play out. Coach Locke will have a great plan there, but I think that having depth at that position is really critical, whether it be at our level or the NFL level. You guys kind of see it every week, every year. It's a longer season. It's more like the NFL, frankly, from a snap count, game plan, games, opportunities. So to have depth, it's really important to keep guys healthy. And then if you do have an injury, you have guys that can step in and still carry that workload. I know we feel really good about the guys we have here, and we'll have some younger guys, that need to continue to grow and provide, that depth over time. But I think having multiple guys in that room do multiple things is always important. That's just good football. And those guys were elite at it last year, and it's our job, and it's their job, and that room's job to fill that void. That happens here at Ohio State every year, but that's part of the spring, frankly, and that's one of the positions probably where guys are learning, growing, and developing through that room. They're off to a good start for spring, but it's very important. Yes.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Brian, you move Jeremiah and Carnell into the slot whenever you need. What does that do for Brandon? Like, how does that impact him? What do you need to see from him when that happens?
Well, I don't think anything with anyone else has any relationship to Brandon. I think Brandon and Bryson are doing a great job playing in the slot. I think that they just want to keep growing from an experience standpoint. You can't be put in enough situations that mimic a game-like environment. So trying to find ways to do that so they feel like they're getting more and more game reps. But, I mean, that's kind of their primary spot, but everybody has kind of a secondary spot, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like we've done here at Ohio State, receiver-wise, best players play. And, when guys go down, I don't care, where you primarily are playing, but if we have an outside guy go down, like, you better be able to go out there and play some football. So, those guys know that. They believe in that. And they're on their own path, on the inside. The Carnell and Jeremiah's paths have nothing to do with BI and Bryson's.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
Brian's talked a lot about the 16 games, and you mentioned it today, and planning for that. Going back even a year when that became a reality, how have you seen Ryan just take that and manage that and make that part of everything you guys do in preparation? How did he do that well?
Yeah, I mean, you're always kind of looking around the corner for what could happen. You always got to operate that it would happen or could happen. So you're operating in the now, but you have to have perspective of the wear and tear of these guys' bodies. I think that's probably why Coach Day's best head coach in America. I mean, be able to have perspective on the now, but then also what's coming around the corner and what could happen, and having a good plan for it. So, frankly, how well he managed it and how he did it is probably more for him. But we felt really good. I mean, with the ability to early on identify, hey, it's going to be a longer season. We need to get guys other carries. Hey, we need to get, other guys reps, whether it be in low line or receiver room or running backs especially. We had that perspective. He had that perspective, and it came to fruition. I think that there's no guarantees, right, in sports. I mean, you just try to do the best you can on increasing your odds of being in the right situation at the right time. And when you do that, it all kind of comes together. We wouldn't have changed how we did it early on to get to where we were if it didn't work out the way it did. But Coach had great perspective on the longevity of it all, and kept us on track, 3 quarters through the season. So it ended up paying off in the end.
Bill Benowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I think this might have been the first time Ryan was not asked a quarterback question, so I'll ask you. What are your impressions of the 3 guys? What has stood out to you about each of those guys?
What has stood out to me? I would say that the first thing, again, just if I can try to, sever off previous years just right now and allow these guys to be the best version of themselves without, being judged by years past. I would say right now, I'm impressed with the way they have grown, even day to day. Like we've already seen improvements from day one. Nowhere near where we want to be, but they're doing a great job spending extra time on their own, being prepared for practice. The way that our schedule went long last year, and now we kind of got spring not jammed up, but just it's a little more in a shorter period of time, right? So we want the same amount of work. So these guys, there's a lot of demand on the weekends of being prepared and spending extra time, and I felt that. I felt them more prepared. I felt them improve on the field. I think the communication pre-snap has improved, execution post-snap has improved, and we are pushing installs now. So they're doing a good job handling that. I think there's been improvement from a command standpoint. Everything is new for Tavian. Doesn't matter, how early you come in January or not. The speed at which the game plays is just you can't replicate. So he's learning, and that's probably the biggest thing that's jumped out at me is that they're working to try to control the controllables, And as defense changes and things change and picture changes, they're learning from it and hopefully making each mistake once and moving forward. I appreciate the way they're spending extra time. I think it feels like to be prepared for the day-to-day activities. Yeah.
Dylan Davis, already bet.
Mylan didn't get here until June last year. Where have you seen this really grow? How different is he now this spring having that time as opposed to?
Yeah, it's not that he's trying to, but it's easy to minimize the work you didn't get because you don't think it's really that important until you go through it. So this past winter he went through it, and he was pretty frank about how important it was for him even this past winter. And to miss that can really have a ripple effect. Again, not that we can't make up for it and make it work, but that's still a lot of work that you haven't done, both individually and your teammates. Haven't seen that. So that's really important, I feel like. Yeah, he's made a lot of great strides. I think this spring has been, is really good for him. It's just still his first spring, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, but yeah, he's just chasing, making that play. He's going to make that play. Just like everybody else, he's going to chase that consistency level and just being that guy that just always makes that play because the guy that always makes that play is that guy, So that's what we're always chasing. It's not if, it's how often. And so he's doing a really good job building his body up. He's bigger. He's stronger. Culturally, he does a great job. I don't think he's ever late. He's doing a good job just continuing to grow on the field. And he's putting a good foot forward so far this spring. Yeah.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Road.
Tyler comes in with a lot of play calling experience.
Yep.
What have you learned so far from him that you can kind of take and adapt to the way that you're going to call plays, or have you guys talked about those kind of things at all?
No, just kind of, working through run game install. I would say that we've done a great job of putting together a great offensive staff. I think that everyone provides really good value, and I think that I'm really excited about it, frankly. We're all going to keep growing and learning and getting our quirks out and how we do things, but we're working on ways to enhance. There's not a whole lot of changing that needs to happen, just enhancing and then finding consistency. So whether it be Tyler or anybody on staff, I think we've put together a pretty good offensive staff, and I think we'll keep growing in our own right. Yep.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You talked about the top of your room a little bit, but has anything stood out about Quincy Porter through these first couple of months that he's been here?
I would say that, yeah, I did. I made a comment on the top of the room. I'd say that the room is really healthy. I would say that ultimately, the newer guys always dictate how good the room can be. There's always projections every year. Oh, this year's receiver room. This year's receiver room. This year's running back room. This year's O-line room. Now, I think having the guys that are coming back that know the offense that have been pretty productive is one thing that checks that box. But how good the younger guys are really will dictate how good the room is. And I think that all four of those guys are doing a really good job of learning the offense. Culturally, they're doing a great job of doing what is expected, and they're studying. They're doing a good job learning the plays. So we're going to have mistakes. We know that, but there's a lot of care from the young guys. I think Phillip Bell and Des Jones and Quincy Porter and Bob Penn Miller really have done a good job putting in extra work, trying to get caught up, trying to hold the standard of the room. And the standard being in spring, like, hey, we're going to make mistakes, but let's make that mistake once and continue to learn. And so those guys have bought into that. Their finish, their strain, their hard work on the field is showing up. And when you catch them on it and they didn't do it, they understand they were wrong. So really, encouraged by those young guys. And, I think Quincy is doing a good job within that group.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Trying to follow up on some of the dynamic with you wearing the headset and stuff, how at practices and balancing that with your receivers. How, when you were doing this 2 years ago in spring with some of the play calling, didn't have the headset, that was like the newer technology now in terms of calling stuff in and talking to the quarterbacks. Like how different is that? Is that like a adjustment or like what is that?
No, it's not. It's not really much of an adjustment. I think you're just sharing the information. Before you were talking to the signaler, and the signaler was relaying the information to the quarterback. So now it's kind of a straight line to him. I'll always make sure that I think clarity of message is really, really important. So, you know, at the end of the day, whether it's right or wrong, that's a different time for a different conversation. I think clarity of message of asking guys to do one job is really important. To have him hear one thing from another guy and another thing from another coach, that's not good football. So when it comes to the quarterbacks, I'll always be in line with Coach Fessler. So I want to make sure that whenever he's talking to and whatever he's saying, I'm echoing that. And if I don't like what is being said, then we'll have a conversation about that. But on the field, you want clarity. And so, yeah, the information goes straight to the quarterback. It's also going to the signaler and everything too. But no, I don't think it's a vast change. I just got to be very sensitive to make sure what's coming through the mic and what I'm saying and not, making the quarterbacks hearing something they shouldn't be hearing. And that's probably the biggest thing, where before you kind of had just a signaler hearing whatever you want to hear, or whatever you say, and they have to do a good job of not telling anybody. But, I would say that I'm just making sure I don't have a lot of noise on the headset for the quarterbacks.
And final question, Jeremy Birmingham,
Kings of the North.
Brian, as 2 years ago, other than the headset, obviously you were in this position in the spring. What 10,000-foot view? What is different now? Why are you more prepared for this and more ready for it? How do you see that confidence growing?
I would say that, it's been 2 years, and I guess, selfishly, individually, maybe grown a little bit. But I don't know. It is different. I couldn't always tell you why. I think that the staff around me is awesome. Not that it wasn't then, but really comfortable in my skin. And I think, being around Coach Day, Coach Bailey, Chip Kelly, pick them, Justin Fry, it was, if you're not around and you're not learning, you're not growing, then you're kind of wasting your time. So try not to waste a day of that. I'm not saying we're perfect like everybody else in this room, but we're surrounded by a lot of elite individuals. So try to maximize each day, and when the opportunity presents itself, be a better version of yourself. And there are some opinions on why I think it might be a little different now, but keep those to myself. I think I've grown individually, frankly, and I'm just excited for the opportunity.
great. Coach